Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Second Watch, your one and only second mass connection. I'm your host, Wil Wheaton, and this week I am proud to welcome actors Noah Wyle, Drew, Roy, and Jessy Schram. So, wow, you guys. I cried a lot watching this episode tonight. That just is not a thing that really happens to me with TV shows, and I certainly don't expect it to happen in the context of a science fiction show. But it is easily my favorite episode of the entire series to date. Wow. Like, you guys, you killed it. And it's so risky to do a flashback episode because you're telling the audience is like, yay, I'm gonna go watch, then we're gonna find out what happened when Tom was abducted. And then suddenly you're telling the audience, no, actually, we're gonna put you in an entirely different realm tonight. And I wonder if you would sort of put on a producer hat for a moment and talk a little bit about how this came together and how the choice was made and what it was like kind of visiting that.
The idea was Remy Aubuchon's. The execution of it, and a lot of the credit should go to John Wirth, who wrote the episode, because with very few revisions, we shot his first draft.
Wow.
And I'd give a lot of credit to David Solomon, who directed the hell out of it too. And it was really, like you said, it was a gamble. It was a big risk. It's the first time we've ever played with our narrative structure that way.
Yeah.
And it's a flashback episode, but it's not a flashback episode.
Right.
And we've been asked a lot, like, are we ever going to go back in time and see what life was like before the invasion? And this was our way of showing what the family life was like, what it was like with Mom in the house, without having to go to the flashback well, which we felt is something that we wanted to keep out of our storytelling for as long as possible.
And you shot this at the end of the season,
This was
right?
the very last thing we shot.
Right. So you've wrapped up the season narratively, like you're done with all of it, and then you come back. So I'm assuming you shot all of the bearded spaceship stuff and then earlier,
in
right?
fact, oddly enough, there's the scene with Moon in the cafe. Because Moon was pregnant and had to wrap out of Vancouver in October, we shot her half of the scene with a body double for me because I had to be clean shaven. So I'm doing my dialogue from behind a pillar in the cafe, directing the actor who's sitting in my chair how I wanted him to move. And then 3 months later, a body double sat in her chair, and I remembered what she had done, and the script supervisor read Moon's dialogue, and I reenacted what the body double had done in my chair. And somehow the whole thing
It's incredible because you can't tell.
No,
you cannot tell at all. No. One of the things that I really loved about this episode was that it helped me I had always known in my head what the Mason family had lost. But I know in my heart, after watching this tonight, you put me there. You spent 3 years playing this guy.
Yeah.
And now you're going to go and be this guy, but in a completely different reality, right? So did you do any kind of special preparation for Tom in this episode? Or is it just like you've been in his head so long, you just kind of know where he's going to be when he's at the school?
It was a lot of that. There was a wonderful bit of synchronicity in that the very first scene of the episode that we shot was almost the very last scene of the show, which was the scene in the bed between Tom and Rebecca. And I had not met the actress that was playing Rebecca until the morning we shot that scene. And all we were was introduced. It was Noah, this is Rebecca, this is Jen, this is Noah. And then I sort of asked her not to engage me in conversation because I'd spent the last 4 years of my life conjuring up the image of what I wanted this woman to be and mean to me to elicit an emotional response in any particular moment. And for some reason, as soon as they turned the camera on, it just clicked. And it was one of the most rewarding moments I've gotten to play because it was the first time with any character that Tom has truly been able to let his guard down. Because she's the person that he knows the best, the person he loved the most, and that's the most vulnerable we ever get to see the character. So once that scene was in the can, I was pleased, and the rest of it was gravy.
I loved seeing you guys in the house. I loved seeing sort of where the Masons came from. And I loved Connor reading War of the Worlds, such a clever like little Easter egg, and with his glasses and everything. But as I was watching that, I thought, whenever I watch the show, I think about how you guys have to go to work every day and get filthy. right? Just like goop in the hair and on the just like, and you just get dirty all the time. So was it nice to like actually wear clean clothes and be in a nice clean house for a change?
It was, and it was Christmas time actually when we were shooting, and the house is decked out like it's Christmas. But you know, we go in for these wardrobe fittings, which we don't really even do that often on the show because we basically wear the same thing.
Yeah.
And I never go into a wardrobe meeting interested in anything, and so they bring out all these different jackets. I'm like, I might.
Oh, like how
that
weird
one.
that?
I could bring that one home. What's the deal on this one right here? And that was a first on this show.
I loved the callback to Jazz Pants. That was great. Like, did you even remember that? What it's
But when you pictured Jazz Pants when I was telling it in the Honda, did you think they were going to be leopard print? Because I was picturing black.
Yeah,
and
they're not at all.
I was like, oh wow.
But you know what I think is so great about that is like the difference is the way it exists in Hal's mind and the way it actually was. Because having recently been the father of 2 teenage boys, right? The reality and the way they perceive it very rarely intersect.
I have to say, every character, every actor was so giddy about this particular episode and getting to sort of reinvent their character, from Colin to Lourdes to, and I think you'd mind me saying this, Wil Patton loved being homeless.
That's actually
like,
my next question was for you. Like what are those, talk about working with him as that guy, like.
Well, I mean, this episode was so interesting, and I was saying how we were talking before about, you know, it's very much in Tom's mind, but it's also very much Karen. It's Karen through every character. And I remember going on set one day and looking at Wil and being like, you look different, even though we were in my lair and they were coming in and ambushing. He's like, Karen didn't get some details right about me. And his hat's different, and he has certain things about him that are Weaver that he had taken off, and it was so brilliant, and it was so great to sit there and go, yes, you're correct, Karen didn't get everything right about your being, and that was just so neat.
When you guys are back on in that tower and you're having that interrogation, we've seen Karen be so cruel, and we have seen her be like pretty despicable. Is it personal with Tom Mason? Or is she telling the truth? Like, I've got to impress these guys. Like those guys from Office Space are coming, and I'm not going to let them take away my red stapler.
Right. Well, I mean, while Noah was laying on the table, I was talking through some things with you, and you're like, well, we've had a history, so it is kind of out there. I don't think she's asking from him saying, this is my situation, you've got to help me out. There's not that personal feel there, but it's definitely very much. She's under the gun. She has this pressure of needing to live up to their expectations. Her plans are falling through. You know, they don't predict the future, but they're always 20 steps ahead. And now the Valm has come in, so they've shifted things. And Tom has things in his mind that I know he won't willingly give me, so I'm trying to get those out. And there is a personal relationship that they have and a hatred, I think, that's between the two of them, as well as this understanding. So he plays me and I play him.
So is it fair to characterize it as like a Holmes-Moriarty relationship?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, good. Well, let me just check that off. Check that off on Falling Skies. Bingo. Okay, good. All right. All I need is for Marina and Weaver to kiss, and I've got a bingo. So that's looking pretty good. That's great. I'm really excited about that. I absolutely loved seeing all the actors who I enjoy on the show in completely different roles, and I really loved that they brought some of their like prime character to the guy they were playing, even die.
Yeah.
Right?
It was particularly rewarding.
Great, huh?
So may he rest in peace. But how awesome was it to have him back on the set?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. There was 2 ways of going with that particular character. One was to have it be played by Steven Weber to bring the character he played in the first season back. And then very quickly we thought, no, it should be Peter. And Peter was free and game to come up and play with us again, and it was great. It was just great.
The end of the show, like it wrecked me. It really wrecked me. I talked earlier about how I felt that sense of loss. I read an audiobook a couple of months ago, and in the book, the character that I'm voicing is writing a letter about how much he misses his wife who's been lost, right? And we had to stop the recording session because I started to cry because I thought, this is how I would feel. Like, as an actor, right, I connect to that thing. So you go in there, and as you walk into frame, and I go out loud, oh my God, he's going back to his house. And you go in there, and it was devastating to see that, to see how those things had happened. And then when you lay down in the bed and she's there, like that was the end of it for me.
Thank you.
And it was like you made me confront those feelings again. What would happen to me if my wife wasn't there anymore, or if I couldn't be there for my kids? And she says to Tom, I love you, but don't come back here.
She frees him.
And my God, that was...
Yeah, he's been waiting for that moment.
But is that coming from his subconscious?
I think so. I think that's, and to a certain extent, channeling what he knows her wishes would be in that moment, which is to live his life to the fullest and to love again and to go on and to love the kids and to be the man that she knew him to be. And giving him permission to own that fully is really significant, becomes a huge turning point for the character.
When he goes back, right, when he comes back and he assume somehow he's going to make his way back to Charleston to see those guys, how is this going to change him? Like, what is he going to carry out of this
Revenge
experience?
You know, he comes back pissed.
Really?
He's on a mission of vengeance now, and it's different than we've seen him before. He's resolute, and it's almost as if his anger is a precious flame that he doesn't want to extinguish. He wants to be angry, and he wants that to carry through the final act. I actually have to give a little bit of acknowledgement to Rob Gray, our production designer, because he designed the house and months in advance was asking me how we wanted the Mason house to feel and how it wanted it to look. And he gave such attention to detail that I felt when we walked onto that set, I knew where everything was without even having to look for it.
Wow.
And then the flip of that, the way he deconstructed it by the end and had it look like squatters had been living in there and trashing the place, but left just enough clues and talismans from the life that we'd lived before, that it was just a very rich environment to play in. And when you have that kind of close working relationship with an art director or a production designer, it's just another character in the show. And I can't pay him enough credit for the amount of work and talent that he brings to the show on such a meager budget. It's really astonishing.
It's such a powerful moment when Tom takes the to-do list off the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And as that happened, I thought, if I were there, it would be really hard for me to leave anything in that house.
Yeah.
Like, I would just want to grab it all. And that was doubly heartbreaking because that's pretty much all he can take is a piece of paper with him to take back. Do you think that that's a thing that just goes into his pocket and it's there? He's holding on to that?
It becomes representative of everything.
Yeah.
You know,
Right, because
if I
now
wanna
he's got
take everything
things to
and I
do.
don't want to take just nothing. I'll take one thing and endow it with everything.
It was really incredibly powerful. Like, it was an amazing episode tonight. And you guys, we didn't really get time to talk about it, but you guys in the interrogation, when you come out laughing at her, oh God.
He was so good.
I realize now that I like this episode so much that this episode of Falling Skies has turned into an episode of the Chris Farley Show, where I just talk about how cool it is.
Remember that time?
Remember that time you're in Falling Skies? That was so cool.
I recently got to do what I consider to be now my crowning achievement. I did a voice on Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, awesome.
And they asked me, are you comfortable doing any screaming? And I thought about this particular episode and how much I screamed in pain, in anger, in rage, and sadness. I thought,
How many times he charged and was screaming, and
I can scream for you.
the ways that Noah screams, there's just everything's coming out. He's like, oh, you need a little different. It's amazing. It's amazing what comes through in your screams, Noah.
So we're
got a lot of pain, Jesse.
so
Got a lot of pain in there.
So we're getting to into the back half of the season now, right? I mean, we've got, I think, 3 left, and it sounds like what you're saying is Tom's going to gather up the troops, and he's coming for you. right? I mean, is that...
Got a little flame. He's got a little flame of vengeance going.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And then-
season's building towards a climax between these characters.
Yeah.
And we promise not to disappoint.
And how's Cal feeling about Karen right now? Every time he has interacted with her this season or she's come up, he seems conflicted. Yeah?
Yeah, no, he definitely feels conflicted. And I think the fact that she still has a thing for him makes Hal feel like there might still be that Karen he knew in there.
A chance to save her.
And if we could possibly get her, maybe we could save her, especially with the Vaughn. But then at the same time, he's conflicted and feels that, no, there are times we should kill her.
Or maybe flip her and make her a double agent. I'm going to put a new square on my Falling Skies bingo card for that. I've talked too long because I loved this episode so much, but it was just great. You guys, I hope that you are as proud of it as I am in love with it. Which is a lot and weird. But thanks very much for being here. Next week, we'll be talking to actors Drew Roy, Sarah Carter will be here, Doug Jones is joining us, Seychelle Gabriel will be with us via satellite, and executive producer Remy Abusham will be here. You can stay apprised of what's going on with the Second Mass right here at tntdrama.com, where you'll find Falling Skies trivia and links to behind-the-scenes action. And until next time, keep the resistance strong.